Hello everyone, my name is Pradja and I work in Cisco Labs as a process manager and agile coach. Today, I'll be talking to you about practical agile in challenging times. The world, as you know, is going through a tough time right now. While the IT industry is somewhat less affected, our non-IT industry customers, who are the bulk of our customers in most cases, are affected. Industries worldwide are faced with a situation where they have reduction in revenue resulting in the loss of profits and the rise of expenses. Take a few examples. The travel industry is in a critical state with less people traveling. Restaurants are suffering with less people eating out, and the entertainment industry is also affected with people not going out for shows and movies. This leads to a reduction in operating profits all around, plus increased overheads and expenses due to new health regulations and safety regulations. What all this does is that even from the point of view of investors and the stock market, they are a little less uh, inclined to invest in solid business models that were previously perfectly okay, but due to the new normal of work from home and other lifestyle changes due to COVID restrictions, they are a little bit reluctant as well. So all of this does not bode well for our customers. The silver lining for us in the IT industry is that here lies an opportunity for us to shine in this moment of adversity. Our expertise lies in coming up with solutions to problems. However, we can't come up with solutions unless we understand our customers' needs, which leads us to another question. How do we do that when we are on the outside looking in? We don't know our customers' domains all that well sometimes. We are literally and figuratively quite removed from our customs in certain cases. Our customers, on the other hand, are in a crisis situation in which their usual playing field and rules as well have changed. And due to this, we are bombarded with more and more requests, changing requirements, all of which we have to do in a tight deadline as well. That does not change. So what can we do to reduce our lead time from idea inception to having it out in production? There are 4 strategies that we can employ when dealing with this situation, but today we will go into depth into one of them. We'll talk about the rest in future sessions. Strategy number 1 is getting off to a flying start. In order for us to deal with tight deadlines, we need to make sure that we start properly and we start well, or we could say we start right. This means that everybody needs to be on the same page, and we need to get on the same page fast. Traditionally, projects took a bit of time to get to this point. Plus, once we get on the same page, we have to continue to be there throughout, or at least, especially during the critical touch points in the project. So one way we can get into a flying start is by running something we call an Agile Inception workshop. Now, you might think this is counterintuitive because isn't the fastest way to get something delivered is to start work on it as soon as possible, right? Some might argue like that. But the reality of the situation is that if you get started on something without being on the same page, with different stakeholders in different places. While you might potentially feel like you're making progress, you might actually be doing the reverse. You would face situations or face problems further down in the project. So the Agile workshop would actually help doing that. So the Agile workshop needs to have a fixed window, needs to have a clear agenda, and needs to be run by a facilitator familiar with this concept. Once the workshop is done, we would end up with a backlog of requirements, what we would call that initial product backlog, hopefully with some priority attached to certain requirements, as well as a very high level technology or architecture approach. The end objective of this workshop is that including the PO and all the other stakeholders come out of it with a shared understanding. This is vital. Let me give an example of what Agile workshop, Inception workshop would entail. First, we would start with that shared understanding. And one way we can do that is by doing something called an elevator pitch, which is building the vision of all key stakeholders. The idea of the elevator pitch is this, if you have not heard of it before. Imagine that you get into an elevator with your CEO. You have this great idea that you think could improve the company. And now's your chance to pitch this idea to the head of the company. But you only have as much time as it takes to reach the desired flow. The way you sell your idea in a short period of time is the art of the elevator pitch. In the context of this workshop, the elevator pitch answers key questions. So how do we write an elevator pitch? It's nothing but a simple statement with 7 key points. What are they? For a target customer, who the statement of the need or the opportunity, the product name is a product category that the key benefit, unlike the primary competitive alternative, our product, the primary differentiation. Now, let me give you an example. I'm quite sure a lot of you are familiar with the Nintendo Wii, which is a gaming console. So if you take the Wii elevator pitch, probably an executive in Nintendo would have framed it like this. For parents with young families who are scared of traditional game consoles, the Nintendo Wii is a family entertainment system that lets families play together, unlike the Xbox and PlayStation, which have complicated joysticks and controllers. Our product uses a natural gesture-based approach to gaming that gets the whole family play, even grandma. So you can see how compelling a simple statement like this, done in an Agile workshop, can bring together various components of what's really important to bring stakeholders together. This creates a shared understanding amongst the team and stakeholders by asking key questions. As you would have noticed, we cover some key bullet points which really are required at the beginning of any project. And by getting everyone involved and understanding what's really important, so it kind of abstracts everything to get us to focus on something. And the cool thing about this is that you don't have to get it right the first time. You can keep iterating, and you could probably start off with a fairly decent one, and you could keep improving this. but at least by the end of the workshop, you would have a fairly stable idea where everybody agrees on one version of this. The key important benefit of this, as I said, is that it gets people together without them really realizing or without them having to rack their brains to answer these questions. It's done, as I said, in a certain facilitated manner in a workshop, right? So you get to this point of shared understanding a lot faster than using traditional methods of emails, of calls of different parties having calls in siloed manner, and finally somebody coming together to put it all together and translate it. So this loss in translation is a key point, right? That increases our lead time. So once you have this, what do you do next? You need to identify how your solution or your product is going to be used. Who are their key stakeholders and users? So methods that we can use, like storyboarding or story mapping or identifying user personas in a workshop environment within Agile Inception workshop, will fast track everybody's understanding of who our key users and stakeholders are. The goal at the end is to have at least a rough idea of the breadth of users, the breadth of our stakeholders who care most about our product, and the domain and the work. Once we finish this together with our elevator pitch, we can move on to writing a usage flow. Maybe it might be per key user. You could fashion it in many ways, but basically a usage flow end to end, so that we again try to cover the breadth. Note here that we are not really fixated on getting everything right and understanding the depth. It's a breadth that we are interested in, right? The usage flows, how you would do it, could be very simply using stickies on a whiteboard and using swim lanes, or using more sophisticated tools. But what matters is that this conversation happens at this point, and it would serve as a reference point for future conversations. And finally, after doing all of this, together with our stakeholders and product owners, we try to build that initial product backlog. So in this workshop kind of environment, everybody's like now all warmed up to the idea, everybody's excited and willing to get really into the meat of things. The team works together with the PO without having any barriers. It could be even a remote team setting, but after you do a workshop at this point, everybody pretty much is working together and collaborating, which is one of the key Agile principles, isn't it? Collaboration with business on a daily basis. But this is where you start. Once you end up with that initial product backlog, we can pretty much exit the Agile Inception workshop knowing that we've done quite a lot of work within a very short amount of time. So roughly an Agile workshop of this nature can be conducted within a couple of days, and you get to a pretty good flying start, I would say. So up till this point, we were talking about understanding the requirement, which was pretty much around the requirement side of things, right? But we cannot forget the technology or the design side of things. Remember, this workshop is about bringing technology people, developers together with business. So we need their voice to be heard as well. And what better way than to hear their voice rather than getting the other non-technology stakeholders to see their technical perspective as well as contribute and understand this technical constraints as well in the same terminology that these developers are using. So that is this what sometimes we would call the architecture or design part of it, or the design day. So maybe if you there could be like one day set out purely for this activity, because this is an intensive activity, right? You would get the architects, the leads, and the developers talking technology, talking high level design. The exact methods of doing it, like I said, could vary. You could use very low tech, simple diagrams, block diagrams, or you could use UML based sequence diagrams, class diagrams, whatever uh, is required, right? If someone is very handy or is very capable of managing these tools, you could straight away use these various UML based diagrams. And there could be other things as well, right? So the bottom line is, uh, any software project will benefit customer and stakeholder alignment. We want to get them on the same page at the inception and fast and have a shared understanding. Not to mention the bringing together of technology and business, which is another barrier sometimes our projects have. We put all of this together. This helps build crucial relationships, which would help the continuation of shared understanding throughout the project. What better way to bring together business and technology than by involving business with the technology related concerns and aspects? This way, they will better understand the gamut of technical complexity in their requirement. The key point is that the artifacts and outcomes of this design and architecture day will also be shared with all stakeholders. So, that, my friends, is a little bit of insight how we can use some of these agile techniques in a practical way to solve challenging situations, especially in times such as these. The next strategy is getting quicker feedback from users, and we will be covering this in another video, so stay tuned.